we have no deputations by appointment, no presentation of permissions. So now we move to the Parks Quarterly Report, and I think Bridie's here. So welcome. It's a very full and thorough report and a topic that's close to many people's hearts in the city.
Yeah, thank you. Andrew Rutledge is an apology this morning, so you've got the lot of us. So
That's great. So a lot of you there, which is fantastic, because I know that there's a few questions.
Yeah, so we'll start with Bridie from Community Parks.
Yeah, cool.
So yes, Al Hardy is away today, so I'm just proxy for Al Hardy, who's the manager of Community Parks. So what we've got for us today, COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown did prevent Community Parks' ability to carry out some additional spring activities and planning. We did experience a period of accelerated spring growth in November, which, there we go, thank you, which did slow us down a little bit. However, our contractor performance was steady throughout spring, through September, October and November. And we achieved quality scores of 87 to 92%, which is acceptable for us. We've also planted 40,000 daffodil bulbs last autumn in our cemeteries throughout the city. We had some really positive feedback from the public, and our intention is to actually continue on with the additional planting next autumn. We're also recruiting, next slide please. We're also recruiting for our 3 additional community park rangers. These rangers will be working towards increasing our volunteer input in parks. I think it's quite important to note that also in respect to smart bins, I'm sure it's a hot topic at the moment, that we won't actually be taking any bins or carrying on with that project during the Christmas period. So there will be no changes to bins over Christmas. However, as previously requested by committee, Community Parks are currently working with our communications team to develop a communication plan ahead of that next phase. Our tree planting program closed last month in October, and our staff are currently planning the 2022 planting program, which sees about 400 trees planted across the city. Our staff are also finalising the 2022 autumn garden renewal program. We have about approximately 120 gardens across 25 sites that will be renewed this season. Also important to note that does exclude any volunteer initiatives and any plantings that are carried out reactively as well. The Bishopdale and St Albans skate park upgrades and extensions will commence after Waitangi weekend, and Bay Skate is due to start works in May, but that is pending the resource consent application. And that's it for our very quick Community Parks
overview.
Update.
That's great. So Brendan, have you got something to add there? Or just for questions? Oh, I see the next bit of talk.
Yeah.
As most of you will be aware, there's been a fair bit of work going on in the red zone recently around improving efficiency and effectiveness of the maintenance, and that's mainly down to the removal of about 15k of fencing. So that makes mowing easier, faster, safer, and reduces the need to weed whack and spray, etc. So it's been a real improvement, and it's getting great feedback. The meadowing trial, which some people are calling the no-mow trial, has been well received. The timing of it's been a little bit tricky in that we've been doing that at the same time the spring flush has been going on, so there's been lots of grass growth throughout the red zone, and some people have confused some of the meadowing trial areas and some of the areas next to it where the grass is on a 4-weekly mow cycle, and they've been looking at it in the 3rd and 4th week saying, well, it's everywhere now, and we've taken a few phone calls saying, no, it's not everywhere. So we had to spend a bit of time explaining that, but we've been getting good feedback on the meadowing trial. We've employed our partnerships ranger, Courtney Reid's already active in there, and she's been fantastic in her new role, and you can see that she's got a whole lot of extra work to do, but she's joined it with real energy and capacity. So we're really pleased to have her on. And finally, the last bit about feedback, lots of positive feedback, some recent feedback around the meadowing trial, which has been neutral, I guess, once they understood a bit more about what was happening. So lots of people really engaged with the red zone, which is obviously great to see. You'll know about their approval for the City to Sea pathway and the Flatwater Hub and the Wainoni Landing. That's going now to the specialist stages with the consultants, and that work will begin in earnest in the new year. The 3 bridges are well under construction. The crane's been taken away at Avondale, is now down at Medway and Snells, and there was a ceremony down at Snells the other day for the public, and there was about 25 different people turned up, including a couple of councillors, thank you, to just ask questions and get some feedback from the contractors. So a really pleasing result there. And the Dellington Landing also under construction. A couple of minor project management issues to deal with along the way, as you'd expect. So that'll be available to open early in the new year, but planting won't happen at the same time. So it'll open without looking exactly how it will be in the long term. That's just a matter of timing around the planting. And finally, co-governance will progress in the very near future, and the implementation plan is nearing completion. So we'll be able to update council in the new year. And looking further ahead, the land transfer, we've had assurances from LINZ that'll go ahead as planned. And the 4th bridge across the Otakara River is also due for consideration. So in the new year, we'll be talking more about how that may proceed.
Great.
And we have Wolfgang to present on Garden Heritage Parks.
I think we'll get through to the end of the presentation first, and then do questions. Yeah. Thanks.
Kia ora, good morning. Let me just take you through some of the sort of update on the Garden Heritage Parks. Urban Forest Plan that's being developed, it's being pushed out into March for the first draft, and that's really because we've got some recent planning bills that have come through to take account of that. So and the aim is to have it ready for implementation for financial year 23. Botanic Gardens, we've done quite a lot of work with the native garden. There's a new boardwalk in there, and we're now planting more and more alongside that. Some of the cherry collection has been renewed, and the rock garden collection, we continue to work quite heavily in there. Got a very good link now with the Alpine Garden Society that have helped us with the Crevice Garden and continue to help as volunteers. It's been an exceptionally good spring. You know, it's still something that I need to check with colleagues to say, look, is that normal? But, you know, stuff's just flowering so well. And even there, you know, those that have been here for a long time are quite impressed by that. So it's just the perfect weather. Harewood Nurseries, we're working at full capacity there, propagating plants. Numbers are picking up. I mean, we're producing about 300,000 plants there per year, and they're beginning to pick up now, sort of towards the 350. And there are plans to increase capacity considerably there. They're well on the way, and volunteer numbers are increasing both at Botanic Gardens. Mona Vale has now got more volunteers. Rising Home, we've got a friends organisation that Kate has helped us to establish, and there's the first volunteers now that are helping there. And we're doing the same at Woodham Park. We had recently a meeting with interested parties. So it's really, really encouraging to see the response that we're getting, and the aim is to do more of that as we go forward. Thank you. The Magnetic Observatory, that's, unassuming looking green turquoise building in the Botanic Gardens, looks like a large shed. And for many years, nobody really knew what was in there. That's now been converted into basically a museum style arrangement, really telling the story of why it's so important. And that's the first project that the Botanic Gardens Trust that was formed 6-7 years ago has helped fund. And that trust has brought in just shy of $300,000 for that. So that's a project that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the trust helping with that. Okay, yeah. It's just, if you haven't seen it, go and have a look. I mean, it's just fantastic. And we've had such great support on it. I mean, even down to Signs Alive, for instance, have doubled what they're giving us because they wanted the quality to be higher. So we ended up having oak and teak and also a brass, on our compass, so which is fantastic. Really, really good. And we've worked really closely with our own interpretation team and public engagement team in Kate's team, and that was really paid off. So fantastic collaboration with them, and also with the various contractors that have been involved. 2 of them have been sponsors as well. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Just beyond that.
and you've got the other one on the left. The lake, and it's just immediately in front of you there.
Yeah.
Right, we'll move. Yep. We'll keep moving on.
But yeah, do go and have a look. It's great. Mona Vale Lily Pond, that's been repaired. That's really still stemming back to the earthquakes, that we need to do that, and we've returfed around it as well, because once we'd done the work, that turf wasn't really in existence anymore. And we're working with the Iris Society, redeveloping the Iris collection there, which is really good. So we're more and more engaging with different societies, like the Alpine Society, Garden Society that I mentioned earlier. Harewood Nursery, we are doubling the capacity out there. So we're looking to have capacity to grow 600,000 plants. We're doing that by expanding the area, but also looking at the pot sizes, because once you're planting tens of thousands in one go, you actually need something that isn't too big. And the potting shed, for instance, has been increased by 50%. That's already there. So we're well underway, to have facilities in place. There's a new growing tunnel going up, and we've got more outdoor growing areas that are just being made ready for us to put plants on. We've done more planting around the Edmonds Band Rotunda, now that that's complete, and also in Scott's Statue Reserve and Rising Home as well. I'm still getting some figures, but it's interesting. We are finding that we're getting more thefts, or we think there's more thefts. Edmonds, literally, I think in one night, they cleared us out of virtually every herbaceous plant we planted within 2 weeks. So, yeah, it's next to the road. It's literally, it's amazing. And then Littleton Jail site, we're also looking at the rose terraces, so the upper terrace that we've got there. Working on the rose garden collection, and also some planting that we want to do near the wall, because that's hopefully going to help us with preventing graffiti, which I've got a real issue with on the jail site, and also the Tobito Boat Museum. So we're also considering whether we might add some CCTV cameras there. We've got one that's overlooking the pool, and we're looking whether we can actually add another one, so that helps us with surveillance on that. And there's one final slide, I think. Yeah. Cathedral Square, as you know, we've had the toilets there in the centre, and we're looking to renew those. The current thinking is, or investigation is, whether we can maybe hire one of the retail spaces that is or was associated with the Ridges Hotel, and actually go in there. The team's looked at various options there, so that's one that they're looking at the moment. Which would be close enough to the square, we think, to actually use there. Cunningham House, we're looking to restore that. So there's investigations at the moment, what needs to be done. And it's really linked to the centenary year, which is in 2024, that it will be 100 years since the opening. And yeah, Harewood Nursery I've covered. And the other thing we're looking at is the Science Centre, which is something that's been in the management plan, that we should increase, the level of science at the gardens. And in particular, we want to work with the University of Canterbury and Lincoln as well, and others, so that, we're actually doing it together. I think their interest is that it's a central city site. And we have 1 million plus people coming through the gardens every year, and of course that's what we all want, is for all of them to learn something about plants and biodiversity as part of that. And then we're in the early stages of looking at Gondwana Land and the Children's Garden, both of those associated with around that corner in in the river loop where the current play area is. So they'll be closely allied to each other, which is why we're looking at the brief at the moment for them together, so that, you know, whoever does the design makes sure we've got really good flow from those two features. Okay.
Great,
Thank you.
And next we've got Rupert from Hagley Park in Puna way.
Good morning. Mine will be a little bit briefer than Wolfgang's there, so I'll whip through it nice and quickly. Currently in Hagley, we're still undergoing the perimeter pathway renewals. Park Terrace has been complete for a few months now, and we've had lots of positive feedback about access and accessibility through creating the loop right the way around North Hagley. Rickett and Ave path is currently in construction and should be completed in the next couple of weeks. So that's going to be great along the edge of the hospital there for accessibility. And Dean's Ave will be kicking off in early 2022 with a real focus on safety and accessibility right the way around the whole park. We've been trialling around with a little few wildflowers in different pockets of the park, and we see this as potentially a nice way to have a little bit of colour around the park, but also reduce some mowing in different areas, so we're not just broadacre mowing the whole park, and hopefully that'll have an effect on reducing carbon emissions and diesels and mowers running around the park. It's kind of early days, so we're learning a lot about the areas that it's going to work, and we're going to slowly kind of move it around the park to hopefully successful areas to create an effect. Tree planting plans underway with Toby having a great effect, city arborist, on the planting plans around Hagley Park. So there was over 100 planted in spring and another 100 trees to be planted in autumn, filling in for future plan planting and filling in other gaps that we believe that can be planted out around the park. We're also looking at an extensive tree planting plan around the Puna and the landscape plan to tidy up around those areas. Some of the events coming up in 2022, it's really exciting to have the Women's World Cup underway in March at Hagley Oval. So we're lucky enough to have some pool matches and a semi and the final. This is a fantastic event for us. The last couple of events have been at the finals have been at the Melbourne Cricket Ground and Lords. So to be up in those kind of venues for our event in the city is pretty awesome. We've also got 2 test matches in Christchurch, which is fantastic, seeing there's only 4 test matches in all of New Zealand, so we're lucky enough to nab 2 of them, which is really great. So it's a real credit to the venue. Orange Theory Stadium's just recently completed a restoration. We've got a really busy season. We've got Super Rugby kicking off and 660 on the same weekend. So we'll see a 660 concert on a Saturday night and then a Super Rugby game on the Sunday afternoon following. So it's going to be a really busy time for that venue too.
That's great, thank you.
And next up we have Kelly with Planning and Asset Management.
Hello. So we've been keeping track of the number of projects that we've currently got on the go, and so far we've got 423 projects happening within our Parks Planning and Asset Management team. About 20% of those are complete. A number of them haven't even started, but the point is there's a lot happening, and we struggle to keep up with it. So unfortunately, as I'm sure some of you have noticed, some of our planned work does tend to get deferred when more requests come in for more urgent work. So just an update on some of the ones that are progressing. We have recently extended the green burial area at Diamond Harbour Memorial Gardens Cemetery, and also looking at improving access to the lower area where it's quite hard to get to when it's wet. Our biodiversity team have had ecological input recently into some major pieces of work, including the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management, hearing on the Cashmere Valley stormwater developments. Also, Nick looks at the allocation of the council's biodiversity funds to the community groups that apply for them. And we get quite involved in giving biodiversity advice to the stormwater planning. Our recreation planner has recently worked with the Polish settlers group to establish a site for a memorial in Littleton overlooking the harbour. This has been, they've been thinking about it for quite some time, so we've found a site now, and that's all go with a large boulder and a plaque recognising their settlement in New Zealand. Takapuniki, we are in a strong partnership with them, and the development works have started. That'll be ready to, we've got the Conservation Minister coming down the day before Waitangi Day to bless the po once they're installed. We are working through options to look at relocation of the archery club from Rauwhiti Domain after the community board decided not to continue with their lease there. That's proving quite challenging because they want a really large space and exclusive use, so it hasn't been an easy one, so that's still ongoing. We've got an endless flow of subdivisions, currently 62 on the go, and we had 10 new ones just in October, so they're still coming in thick and fast, and we look at the reserves that come out of those and assess what's needed there. We've been working with the Summit Road Society and the Regional Parks team for a car park upgrade at Sign of the Bellbird, and the Society's also looking at developing a lookout there named after James Jamieson, their founder. John Jamieson, sorry, thank you. And another exciting project we are working on is the BMX club that's based at Bexley Reserve would like to develop a major pump track adjacent to their track, and it'll be sort of an international level pump track that should attract some events, and they're in the process of fundraising for that. And the idea is that they develop it and then they'll gift it to the council to become a public facility.
Great.
In the more in the policy area, we are still looking at options and how we go about trying to work with the community for options to replace what was Godley House over at Stoddart Point. And so there's a request for proposals process that we're working on to invite the community to put proposals forward to develop a commercial facility over there. We're also having input into a naming policy for council parks, roads, community facilities and buildings, and that's something that you will hear more about next year. The Sticks Living Laboratory Trust freshwater received a lot of funding for freshwater improvements, and so we're working with them, and they're undertaking a lot of planting in the area. And in fact, we're going out there for a site visit this morning, so that'll be good. And the Sportsfield Network Plan is one of those ones that keeps getting deferred by more urgent work coming in, but we're chipping away at that. The draft is in place. I've had some feedback internally, so I'm just going through that now, and hopefully we'll be able to bring that to council next year.
Great, thank you.
And then next up is Kate with Programs and Partnerships. Morena. So Programs and Partnerships update. We've got 9 apprentices currently in parks. That's a 300% increase from where we were in 2018. Importantly, there's been a couple of apprentices who we've had more permanent roles come up in teams, and they've been considered sort of half to 2/3 the way through their apprenticeship to be competent enough to move into those roles, which frees up those apprenticeship roles. And because of the government apprenticeship scheme, of course, that's cost neutral to council because all of their tuition fees are being paid for. New apprenticeship at the production nursery has been included in that. COVID restrictions are still impacting on our volunteer numbers. We have people who are just, as you all know, are so passionate about working in parks, and it's a really important part of individual and community wellbeing. So they're very, very motivated to keep going. But there are some challenges under the traffic light system, often with larger events. Even with smaller events, it's fairly traditional to put on some kai or have a barbecue. And even though under the strict government rules, one can provide food, there is some risk in that for council. So we've decided to just wait until the new year and see what the impact of the traffic light system is on volunteering before we start offering things like barbecues again. We've got internships in place for young people with intellectual disabilities. I think we signalled that at the last quarterly report. They're trucking along really nicely, and at the libraries where those young people are interned and in parks, it really has an impact on the culture in those teams to have people who require a little bit more understanding and caring. So it's been really, really positive. Of course, the challenge for any business and council and all that is perhaps to have a look at whether we can offer any meaningful employment opportunities for people with intellectual disabilities. I think organisations like Project Search and those sorts of things are throwing out that challenge to council and everyone else to walk the talk with diversity and think about creating positions for people in that situation. We've added a volunteering partnership with Gap Filler and the Mission, taking men who use the night shelter out into our regional parks and doing work. They're building benches and stripping plant guards off and that sort of thing. Their work ethic is tremendous. They work really, really hard, these men, and this has been a very, very positive thing. So something that we'd really like to continue. Oops, I'm on the wrong page. So we are discussing with the Department of Corrections for cadetships opportunities for people coming out of prison. Obviously, there are some challenges around there, but for parks in particular, we are aware of the fact that there's a very good nursery out at Rolleston, and a lot of the men who come out from having done 1 or 2 years there and worked in the nursery are really, really motivated to have a career in being a nurseryman, and they come out and the opportunities are very few for them. So that's an ongoing discussion. In our partnership with MSD, where we've been bringing cadets into parks, which you already know about, we've recently modified for the next tranche to have 2 positions within that cadetship dedicated for Māori rangatahi. Parks unit are very keen to see more young Māori people choosing parks as a career. It is quite low at the moment, and MSD are very keen to see us providing dedicated opportunities. So that's going to happen. My interpretation team's been working with Accessibel lately to get much more comprehensive information for treks and walks for people with disabilities around the city. And I know that some of our regional parks rangers are really, really keen to see us expanding that a little more. The disability community are really looking to have some consistent signage across the country and even internationally about the grades of walks that they're able to use in wheelchairs. So there's probably some work to do there, and I'm going to start looking to see where we might get some funding to support that. There's an increasing number of groups in Cass Bay such as Cascade, Diamond Harbour, and certainly conservation volunteers who are very keen to develop community-led plant nurseries. This is a really strong area for development within the voluntary and community space. We all know there's a shortage of plants around the country, not just for us, and also a paucity of people experienced enough in eco-sourcing of seeds. So there are opportunities there to really increase the capacity within the community to address that problem. So our request for placements for young people with intellectual disabilities is definitely increasing. This is a community who will talk to each other, and so all the schools that we're working with are talking to other schools, so that's only going to increase. But we try to place those young people in areas and libraries that are close to the schools where they are, so that's just something that we can keep increasing as time goes on. I've already spoken about the traffic light system and the challenge that it provides. And COVID has continued to have a little bit of an impact on the LTA program. Some schools just being a little more reticent about taking their kids out. Certainly the traffic light system means that when we're bringing young people from high schools into civic for our civics program, they will have to have their vaccine pass and all of those sorts of things, but the schools are all very, very welcoming of all of those changes, and we've had no pushback at all. And as a team, our teachers have also spent some time linking our programs to the Sustainable Development Goals. We had a day where we were looking at those and looking at what the relevance of those goals were to the programs that we're offering. We're currently we're just about to submit tomorrow, in fact, our proposal to the Ministry's new request for proposals for the new contract cycle for learning experiences outside the classroom. We've got a very, very strong proposal with some great feedback. Our teachers have been batting 100% on their satisfaction levels, so we're pretty confident in terms of what we will receive from that new contract. Thank you.
Kate, do you just want to wait there? Sorry, do you just want to wait there? Yeah. So finally, in regional parks, our visitor numbers this spring have been pretty high post-COVID. People seem to remember they've got a great backyard and they're out enjoying it. We've got a lot of spring growth happening at the moment, so a lot of the teams focused on weed control and keeping the tracks clear. Also recently we've had some new government funding which has enabled us to employ 10 more people. So we've got 2 teams, one set up in Port Hills and one up on the coast, and they're working with the ranger team and learning and upskilling as they go, and their main focus is on pest control. And this gives you a bit of a snapshot of the work that they're doing. The map shows some of the sites they're working in, and we're gathering information on areas that they've been weeding and what type of pest control they've been working in, because we have to do quite a bit of reporting back to the government. Some of our capital projects, just to call out some of the biggies, Akaro Wharf is currently out for public consultation, and Diamond Harbour, we're in the tender stage. Naval Point, looks like we're back on with CellGP there, so we're having to get that ready again. We're still developing that. Ceiling's about halfway through for the new car park. And our environmental partnership funding has been made, or an action to be made, to about 12 community groups. So this summer we're expecting continued high use. On the foreshore, we've been working on our slipways and our wharves. Our swimming platforms are now up ready for summer use, and we continue working with the range of community groups that we have all across the network. And just to finish off, this really typifies some of the work that we've done with Kate's team. So the guy in the middle in the orange is Ian, who's one of our long-term volunteers. He's been biking up the hill up to Victoria Park for about 20 years and helping the rangers out there with landscaping and gardening. His bike got stolen once, and the rangers chipped him, got him another one. He is getting quite old now, so the rangers thought we really need to get him an e-bike, but our pockets weren't that deep, so we went to Kate's team. And Kate, you want to tell what happened?
So we but I started a Give a Little campaign, which just went off. It was incredible. We opened the campaign at 10 o'clock in the morning. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd hit the goal. That was because a lot of people, a lot of staff in parks gave, pretty much all the rangers gave, but then one of them knew somebody in the mountain biking community who regularly see Ian up around the hills. Once that hit the mountain bike community's social pages, we got the rest of it. We got $1,500 in the space of a couple of hours. We were just getting 3 or 4 donations every few minutes. It was fabulous. Val, his sister, has just expressed her incredible appreciation for this. Ian's a very humble man and he quite easily overwhelmed. So we, despite the crowds there, they were all people who knew him. All the rangers turned up yesterday. It was a beautiful day. It was just the most lovely thing, and a testament to what the community can do in a few hours with a good cause.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much. And I've got to say that's such a nice way to wrap it up. That's been an incredibly thorough presentation with a lot of stuff in it, and I know that councillors have some questions. What I will do is ask councillors to stick to high-level questions and nothing that might be considered a customer service request or anything like at that level, so that we can get through the high-level stuff. So I start with Pauline, then Jimmy, then Yanni.
Oh, thank you. I'm absolutely blown out by this report. It's just incredible. It's really heartwarming. A lot of stuff in there is just so good. My question is about the iTree project. I don't know who that would be to, but can someone just expand on that for me a little bit? There's a statement in here that we're waiting on timeframes from the US regarding how long it will take to process New Zealand data, so I'm kind of not really sure what it's about.
Yeah, sure, I can. iTree is basically a system that's been developed in the US, which is looking at tree data and canopy data and so forth. And the University of Canterbury are leading that to actually implement it, for us. And we're looking at March that it will be up and running, and we can then start using it, for our arborists and so forth.
Is it a system of classifying your trees and?
Yeah, it's to record trees and also the data around it, so that you can use a lot more of the quantitative data for the trees.
Right, well, that's excellent. That's really helpful. And
Yep.
just quickly, second question is around the nurseries expansion.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going for staff? Have we got enough staff to work in there?
We've got enough staff. I mean, what we're doing, which we have been doing for a number of years, is when we've got the busy season, like at the moment, we're in the middle of potting, and we then basically double or more than double, with seasonal staff that come in, because we have to do it in a certain time period. So basically, we have to have it sown up by the end of January, so that the plants are ready. And so yeah, we've put quite a few staff in there.
Great.
And trying to make sure that we keep that running. There's like with everything, there's always more that we'd love to do, but they're able to cope with those numbers.
Great, thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Jimmy.
I have two questions. The first one regarding to on page 29, 6.2.1. You have particular mentioned a CCTV camera has been increased in Botanic Garden, particularly urban yard, and also urban house, as well as Monaware. My question is citywide, whether the parks unit have any plan to try to, have advertised to install some of the CCTV in the citywide park. One expect to defer the theft damage. The other one is how to improve those safety. Do you have any plan?
So that's probably a matter that we'll get Gary Watson to respond to. It's not a parks matter. So we'll get some information back to you, Councillor Chen.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Second one, the council very good like to have new naming the policy. This for the page 34, new policy for the council parks rules. I mean, I see it says to a particular consider Maori European early the second phase. But because our cultures now become a more diverse community, my understanding, even Chinese since the 1960s, settled here, Indian 1900. So whether in the early stage they have some of them still can be the remainder, whether to be the part of this early settlement.
So that's good feedback. Thank you. I'll pass that on as something to consider.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks. Yanni?
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question on the tree canopy. So it's 6.12 on page 27. Just when is the new canopy survey results likely to be ready?
We're looking at that for March.
Right.
So that's my understanding. So they're basically looking at the data and refining it. Because when we did the first data sets, there were some discrepancies that we're now picking up and making sure that everything is taken account of.
So is there a program in place, like just obviously having done the tree policy hearing, a number of people were really keen for us to do more to protect trees. We've asked for advice around a district plan change to list new notable trees or significant trees. So can I just
to do with this particular report? So the high level question on the canopy.
No.
stuff
So what I
is
wanted
fine.
to ask, So what I wanted to ask though is there a process around engaging, like with the urban forest plan, which is delayed? Is there a process by which we can engage the community on what the results are of the tree canopy and the eye tree, and at what stage could we do that? Because when we did the tree policy hearing, people were really keen to know
that's right.
what's happening. So, sure.
My understanding is that will be as part of the strategy.
So when are we likely to talk to the community about increased, the results of the tree canopy results and the urban forest plan? Like when will we actually start talking and engaging with communities over what we're doing and what the data shows?
So that will come back when the paper comes back about the strategy. So we'll come back with, when that comes back, we'll come back with some timeframes. So rather than putting people on the spot to estimate things now, all that information will be with the report around the strategy.
Right. Okay. And then, so thank you for the really detailed report on the cemeteries. I thought we were going to get a separate report, but it's great to have it in here, and there's heaps of detail. Unfortunately, in the matrix, it's not clear how much funding is allocated to each of the projects that's happening or not. So it's really good to get a sense of what's happened. But what I don't have any sense of in terms of budget is what's unfunded, what's currently funded, and what changes might be required for budget.
So let's make it clear there's a difference between this one and those kind of budgeting things go through finance and performance and the annual planning stuff.
Well, sorry, no, actually the cemetery's master plan has budget attached to each of the projects that are listed in the matrix. So we got a sense of what the money was.
The only questions around how budgets are being spent within these projects and whether they're on budget and on target for finance.
Do you want that F&P? So can I just, I guess what I was interested with the cemeteries is, like, there's heaps of work to be done. There's a lot of reference to landscape plans, the planting around the landscape plans not being done. And so I was just kind of trying to understand if there was any funding or if there was any projects in here that are really critical. And the one I just wanted to draw your attention to, which is actually listed as green, but I have a specific question on, which is page 46.
Specific stuff is being sent through.
No, this is high level. Yeah. So 14, cultural requirements. So it's talking about, so it's listed as green, but it's comprehensive cultural faith group burial related requirement process undertaken for Whakata, Christchurch Cemetery, Templeton, draft development plan. But it says all cemeteries. So I just wanted to know what's the process to look at the cultural requirements around existing cemeteries and other cemeteries, and obviously you'll be aware of the issues that we've had recently.
So my understanding is you've got a request for information in about that at the moment, and the park, Andrew's working on getting a response to you about that. So you've already made a request through the OCE, and that's Andrew's working.
No, this is quite different. So what's been flagged as a review, but actually what was in our master plan was to do this work and engage with cultural groups. And so I'm trying to understand what work's actually being done in that space. It's been done for Templeton, but I'm just trying to understand if it's been done for any other cemeteries or with any other cultural groups.
There's work going on with the Muslim community at the moment, but we could do some. I can look into that more and bring some information back.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. I don't think it's
Very good. Thanks.
right. Tim, then Phil.
Thank you. Just with regards to the clever bins and being installed, it'd be really good to work in with the community board staff, because I know that the time that we've had with it has been with groups coming to us saying, that there's it's not understood by a lot of people, and they go to the park and they just talk about removal. Totally on board with it. It's absolutely a great way to go forward. So I just think it'd save a lot of people's time if we work through the community board, or you guys work through the community boards to those community groups that are good users of those parks to get a better understanding and the placement of them. It'd save a lot of time.
Yeah, we are. So we're still talking with the comms team about that plan and how we push out that information to community boards and to different community groups.
Yep.
So that is something that's being worked through at the moment.
Of course, directly with the community board team would be really good. The other side of it is to name and shame, because I just cannot believe that people turn up to a full rubbish bin and you say bloody council.
Yeah.
It's just stupid,
That's what they put on
and
Facebook.
yet we're a climate emergency, and people still dump their shit where they shouldn't. So it's just, I think it's about time that we started. Yeah, I can carry my dog poo for a couple of miles. It doesn't bother me, but some people just won't. But they'll take their dog in the car 2 miles. So I think it's about time we started to name and shame people.
I'll take that off.
Thank you.
Okay. Phil.
Right. I'd just like to touch on archery, please. Are we, how much effort are we actually putting into archery? I understand we're down to 2 places now, Bexley and Els Terrace.
Oh, it's changed again.
Is it changed again, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you let me know where it's at?
Can I just check if your speaker answering? Can you come up to the mic so people on who are dialed in can hear?
Yeah.
So,
but it's also quite a specific question that we could just get an update through to you for, I think.
Yeah, I just feel that we've been talking about it long enough. If we've got a bit of dirt, we should just give them a bit of clarity on where they're heading so they can sort of get their head in the right place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think if you're able to get a wee update to fill in the board, that would be useful. Yeah. Thanks. Jake, then Aaron.
I know that we as elected members had an approach from a couple of guys wanting to build a structure in Hagley Park. Wish I could remember more of the details, but a big long coppery thing. Has that advanced at all, or is there any more information from the staff side?
I believe the request has been declined in terms of just trying to set a precedence of what they were trying to build in the structures, and we didn't deem it appropriate. It had some effect on some sports fields and vehicle movement throughout the park. So at this stage, we were trying to provide some other alternatives, parks that they could still use.
Aaron.
Just a quick one, and I think it was for Wolfgang earlier in the presentation, the toilets in the square. Do we have a date for that yet? It was raised at the Disability Working Group on Monday.
No, I'm not. I don't think we've got a date for that yet. It's that's the latest location they're exploring. There's been several others they've done before, but I haven't got a date.
So
what I'll do is I'll try and find out and get back to you.
No ballpark date, because people will eventually come back to the city.
Sure. Yeah. I think we're looking at sort of 18 months or something like that, 24 months. But I really have to get back to you with the detail.
Okay.
I can do that.
Are you aware of changing places? The design, the cubicles with the hoists and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there's a desire from the council that there would be one of those as part of the facility. So if you could meet with them and just be aware of it before you design.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'll get back to you with a date or whatever I can find out. Yeah.
Okay. I think that with that we will wind up. Thank you so much for a really thorough presentation. I mean, parks are dear to the heart of everyone in the city, and we as councillors get a lot of feedback from our communities on them, and there's such a huge range of activities that happen in them, and a huge range of different parks and facilities that are looked after by you guys. So thank you so much for looking after such a precious part of our city for us, and have a fantastic Christmas, and I hope you'll get a bit of a holiday and a break. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, do I have a mover for receipt? Pauline and Jimmy to second. Hei whaka ai, all those in favour? Hei whaka kau, all those against? Declare that carried. Thank you very much. I know, I'm trying to incorporate some stuff.